Welcome, all you sinners and sodomites, to episode 74 of Bible Stories for Atheists. I am Josh, my co-host is Linz, and we are your guides to the satanically silent stories, literally, literarily littering the Bible. This is a special episode with two special guests, ministers Bendr and Lewis Cypher, co-heads of the Satanic Temple, West Michigan. Recently, they made news by having the audacity to deliver the opening invocation at the Ottawa County board meeting. Now, for those living outside the US, or for those who have never experienced the thrill of going to a county or township board meeting, some of them have rules saying that they can't start unless somebody says a prayer for some reason. And typically we call that prayer an invocation, as if that's not ominous. Anyway, but since our Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, has the First Amendment, which says that none of our governments are able to favor one religion over another, that means that any government that has these prayers have to accept people from all faiths to do those prayers, including the Satanic Temple. And when the Ottawa County Board was forced to allow the invocation, local Christians lost their damn minds. I want to start by playing the invocation that Minister Lewis Cypher delivered. You'll hear protesters singing in the background throughout, and at the end, it will cut to the protesters outside.
Good evening, my friends. My name is Lewis Cypher. I'm a lifelong resident of Ottawa County, as well as an ordained minister of Satan and the co-head of the Satanic Temple, West Michigan. Many of you are already familiar with my fellow co-head, Minister Bendr. Together, we represent the Satanic Temple, West Michigan. On behalf of our congregation, we wish to extend a loving embrace to all of our friends and family members, to our neighbors and fellow residents of Ottawa County, and to our esteemed Board of Commissioners for allowing us to be here today. It is with great humility that I stand before you to deliver the opening invocation this evening. So without further delay, I begin. Let us stand now, unbowed and unfettered by arcane doctrines, born of fearful minds in darkened times. Let us embrace the Luciferian impulse to eat of the tree of knowledge and dissipate our blissful and comforting delusions of old. Let us demand the individuals be judged for their concrete actions, not their fealty to arbitrary social norms and illusory categorizations. Let us reason our solutions with agnosticism in all things, holding fast only to that which is demonstrably true. Let us stand firm against any and all arbitrary authority that threatens the personal sovereignty of one or of all. That which will not bend must break, and that which can be destroyed by truth should never be spared its demise. It is done. Hail Satan. Thank you very much. We wish everyone a wonderful evening tonight. Thank you.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
It's so weird to me seeing a Satanist give this succinct, inspiring speech about personal freedom and reason, just to cut to Christians on their knees chanting incantations. And that's what inspired me and Linz to invite these guys to talk to us. I have a quick apology I have to give to you, the audience, but mostly to our guests. We were using a new mixing board for this, and I screwed up the audio, unfortunately. But we are all used to listening to podcast interviews over Zoom nowadays, so I think, it's not that far off from that. But stick around because it is a great conversation with two guys literally putting themselves out there to fight for freedom of religion and equality of religion. So strap in and strap on for episode 74. Hail Satan. So I figured we'd start off with, I feel like most of our audience is going to know this, but I almost said Scientologists. I apologize.
Bad start.
I know.
Poor form.
Instant speed bump. Satanists don't actually believe in Satan, typically. Is that correct?
Correct. So Satanism has always been established as a non-theistic religious belief, and it's less about Satan as a literal, actual figure or deity, and more about Satan as a literary figure that is a metaphor for being an adversary against tyrannical authority.
And you feel like there's a tyrannical authority in Ottawa County right now?
I believe there's tyrannical authorities all over the nation.
All over? Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
Places where there seems to be a trend where certain kind of religious beliefs tend to dominate, we see more of this tyrannical overreach happening.
So you had a hard time getting on the list for this invocation, correct?
I mean, so not exactly. A year before, Minister Bendr Bones here had showed up at the Board of Commissions meeting. I forgot what the date was exactly, but he was petitioning, and through his petition, he did state that we would be applying to deliver an opening invocation. And so when the time was right, it was about a year later when the policy, the guidelines that the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners went by, they had changed that in light of a lawsuit that, an ongoing lawsuit by Reverend Jared Kramer. I forgot which church.
Was he the Episcopal Church?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so, I saw that too, that he was having a hard time as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So Board of Commissioners ended up changing their policy, in response to that. And when the policy became essentially open to any faith leader within, who resided within the county, that's when I mentioned to my fellow co-head and the rest of our leadership committee that, this was the time to essentially submit an application or, a request and get the invocation done. So we did that. And like a day later, I received a response from my commissioner and the invocation coordinator with a date, a tentative date and time. And at that time I said, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So it was kind of like it happened a lot, in all honesty, it happened a lot faster than we thought it would. We honestly were expecting there to be significant pushback.
Right.
And so when I submitted the request and got a response back like a day later saying like, here's a date and time. Yeah. I was like, I'll take it. No questions asked, no fight. I'll take it.
Yeah. So, how far out was it?
It was about a month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
about 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you had some time.
7 weeks.
Yeah.
So was that when the writing process started for this?
So we immediately started discussing what we were what we were trying, like what our mission was going to be, what we were trying to accomplish through this. We started discussions with our national leadership and even some of our national security detail to kind of plan and organize what this was all going to be about. As far as the invocation that I was going to say, I was pretty sure that I already had one in the bag. Our co-founder, Lucian Greaves, had written an invocation some years back that actually lined up with the guidelines in the invocation policy quite well about not disparaging other faiths and not proselytizing or anything like that. And so I decided to adopt the invocation that he wrote for these purposes so that we didn't have to worry about running the risk of essentially playing any kind of foul.
Right.
So we did that. The opening greeting was pretty much just, that was all me. I wanted to introduce ourselves and just say real briefly who we are and what we were there to do. I thought that was necessary simply because not very many people even realized that there was a Satanic Temple, West Michigan.
Yeah.
So, just to pop out of the shadows there, I thought it was important to at least introduce ourselves.
Yeah. I like how you said that you were a lifelong Ottawa County resident at the beginning too. Yeah. That was really good.
Yeah, the greeting kind of distinguished the invocation from what some would call as a prank. It is a from the heart kind of, hello, this is who I am, this is what I represent, thank you for having me here today. And it shows good faith that we are happy to be there. We are happy to be a part of that community. And we're going to continue to do so.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just being able to say some words into a microphone. It's actually a sincerely held belief in just being there and being an active community member to help better everyone around me.
Yeah, there was a very distinct difference between like what you would expect to be a silly thing, like for most people probably, which would be the satanic invocation, and then like the protesting. Yeah, like that, like your invocation was so straightforward, and it was very like, we're happy to be here. We're happy to be part of this community and everything. And then like outside you have all the chanting and the singing and stuff like that going on in the meantime. It was very interesting. Yeah. Disparity there.
Well, and I felt too that like what you, like if people actually stopped and listened to what you were saying, like a lot of the things that you were saying align with a lot of conservative ideals. So like if they actually sat, and not saying that you guys are conservative or liberal one way or the other, but like the things about like not being led by any outside forces and things like that, like a lot of libertarians believe that. So if they actually like shut up and listened, then they would be like, oh, I actually believe these guys and agree with what they're saying.
Yeah,
right.
The words of the invocation, much like the 7 tenets, anyone can read this and say, I agree with this. This makes sense.
Right.
You take away the Satanism or like the spooky element of it, and you have a fairly benign piece of writing that I think most people could just agree with. So that extra layer of Satanism on top kind of juxtaposes a lot of people's ideas of what to expect out of this.
It really does define essentially the kind of the double standard that we have going on in our country. You know, we're a pluralistic country. We have a lot of different religions and cultures and stuff that make up America. And for some of the most fringe nationalistic Christo-fascists out there that, you know, are against the whole idea of allowing other people to also participate in their local politics, local and or national. Like it really shows it's not just unconstitutional, like it's downright un-American. You know, and the truth is that we are a part of this country, whether you don't like Satanists or not. Like I work here. I work, right in Ottawa County. I pay taxes. I vote. Like, this has been my community my entire life. And to say that I don't have a place in there simply because I have a certain set of values is just, I mean, it goes against the very idea of what America is.
Right.
Yeah.
And in general, those values are like believing in what we consider to be fictional characters, right? I mean, at the core of it, though, the things that you guys believe in are things I think as you said, most people can agree that they believe in. So it's completely ridiculous that really what it is because you use the term Satan, all of a sudden it's like, it's bad.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's automatically bad. You know, it's
and we've read the Bible. Satan's a hoot.
I know, and it doesn't show up very often either.
Satan is a misunderstood character from the Bible.
Yeah.
There are a lot of discrepancies between the Satan from the Old Testament to the Satan character in the New Testament. We can thank a lot of the Catholic Church and their romanticization of the end times prophecy and pushing that whole narrative, which has kind of landed us where we are now.
Yeah, sell those paintings.
Yeah,
all those ancient paintings.
It's real interesting because I have several Jewish friends, actually, believe it or not, and whenever I try to explain to someone that, like, really the whole archetype of Satan that you think about right now, like, that is a Christian invention. I mean, really, it started with the first Christian church, which were the Roman Catholics, and that whole idea of, like, what he is and all his characteristics, those are very Christian things. You ask the majority of Jewish people, which is where Christianity, like, stemmed from, like, Satan, first of all, is not the way he's imagined by Christian, the Christian church is not the way that it's not what Satan is to them.
Right.
Number two, like, the whole Lucifer thing, like, that's not even a thing for them.
Right.
And so people like to think that, like, Satan and devil worship and stuff like that were things that went as far back as, like, the very origins of human civilization. And it's like, no, it's actually a couple thousand years removed.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, in reality, he did not exist since the beginning of the time.
Right.
Like, you guys put him into existence.
Yeah. Job, I mean, if you read the book of Job, it sounds like he's part of the divine council that helps God out. Like, he's not even like an enemy of God. He's somebody who just shows up and talks to God. It's
he's
really
essentially a judge.
Yeah.
He's there to expose your weaknesses and
prosecutor.
Oh, prosecutor. Yes.
Yeah.
He's the divine prosecutor.
Right.
God would be the judge.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He was essentially Satan or the enemy. I guess not even the enemy in that story,
The adversary.
But the adversary. Yes. Was a prosecutor.
Well, not even so much. He wasn't the enemy. The Satan was, he could not act without Yahweh's permission.
Right.
Everything that happened to Job and his family was done with the express consent of Yahweh to do this.
Yeah.
The Satan could not just
The whole
act
story is fucked
unilaterally
up.
and do it. There was permission to make this happen, all to solve a bet.
Yes.
right.
That the all-knowing Yahweh should have already known the answer to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's yes.
Yeah.
I think that was our conclusion too.
And in the end, everything worked out for fine for Job, even though his kids were all killed and he got new ones.
Right. Yeah.
They're like hamsters.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Sometimes they just die.
Just replace it with the kid wakes up and just, I don't know why it looks different.
Yeah.
Wow.
But no, the Bible's pro-life.
I don't know if
Yeah, I was just going to say, I could say a thing or two about reproductive rights.
you guys happen to watch Good Omens on Amazon. They play out that whole story in that show.
Oh, yeah.
And it is pretty hilarious.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was interesting was in the Overflow room, what was going on during your invocation, where, like, as soon as your invocation started, they started interrupting it, which, man, talk about just trying to censor people. Like, again, your stuff is so like could really resonate with those folks, and they can't let you be heard. You know, it was so I don't know how you felt about that, like what your experience was the night of, you know.
I do have an opinion on that, but my opinion came from someone that actually wasn't in the room.
Okay.
I saw the video after the fact because I was obviously the one giving the invocation.
Yeah.
Minister Bendr Bones was actually there in the room.
Oh, you were in the Overflow.
Going on, so he can probably describe the climate in that room better than I can.
Yeah.
It's when he's done, I'll pretty much give you my take on that. Yeah.
So I had the privilege of sitting in the overflow room with my herd, and we sort of locked down a corner in the back of the room and just sat there throughout the duration of the meeting. It was quite interesting as the invocations as the greetings started, people were kind of like hesitant, like anxiety was very high in the room. People didn't really know what was going to happen.
It is with great humility that I stand before you to deliver the opening invocation.
As soon as you began the words of the actual invocation, just the place just went in uproar.
Stand now, unbound and
People started screaming. Street preachers started walking around, yelling and shouting. It is an incredible demonstration of cowardice to believe that you have to shout over words that you disagree with to demonstrate that your God is more powerful than the beliefs of somebody else.
Jesus be glorified in this place. Jesus be glorified, the name above all names, the name that every knee will bow, every knee will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Jesus Christ is Lord. You will bow. You will bow. You will bow to Jesus. Jesus will. Jesus.
Remember that. Satan is the one that put Christ on the cross. He is a liar. He is a thief. He is a murderer. We must not give place to the devil. Back down, back off, back away from all this works of darkness.
He died for our sins. He died for your sins.
To have to be able to do that in that manner and to take that opportunity away from other people who were there to hear those words is just, it is cowardice.
Yeah.
Glorify the name of Jesus today.
This is legal.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience to see fear grip a hold of people and rationality be thrown aside over words.
Right.
So that was
into a microphone.
That was what really sunk in for me watching that. Was it struck me how fearful they seemed of it.
Yeah. I think when I saw the footage of that after the fact, I was more disheartened than anything. Not because they were shouting over me. It's because there were people that really did go there, really did attend in the commission meeting to hear the invocation. For some people, this was a very meaningful thing for them. And to have that taken away by a bunch of fringe street preacher type, people that just, no matter what the words actually are, like, we're evil, and that's all they need to know to be as disruptive as they were. And I found that very very saddening, especially when you can see like our group off to the side, behaving, like everyone
civilized.
We're very well behaved, and very, cordial and everything. And it's like, if this doesn't really show the dynamic between,
True.
It's like, I was just flabbergasted. But yeah, I was very sad to see that after the fact. And I'm just really happy that, first of all, no violence actually broke out.
Yes.
We were very concerned about that. So that was the very first thing. I'm extremely grateful that our people were safe. I'm extremely grateful that law enforcement was present and doing their job very respectfully and professionally. And then and lastly, like, I'm very grateful that people still had the opportunity to go back after the fact and hear the invocation that they essentially were denied at the time of the event.
Yeah. And it's not like your people interrupt their invocations, like Christian invocations or anything like that. Like, why would they feel like they have the permission to do it? So yeah.
And I would condemn that behavior if any of the people within my congregation were disrupting other groups from practicing and having their rights. I would condemn that behavior.
Yeah,
we're so anti-cancel. Like, even if the information or the words that are getting spread are like hateful and just distasteful, like we fight to protect the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion of others, even when they assemble against us. Like, that's the thing that a lot of people don't know, is they think of us Satanism like out there trying to be anti-Christian and trying to, like, rip America away from the loving embrace of God. And it's like, no, dude, I'm out there fighting so that you can say these stupid things without the government getting down your back.
You started talking about this a little bit. I'm kind of curious if there's anything more here around what kind of prep you guys had to do for when it came to security and stuff like that. Like,
I'm curious on how fast this spread. Like, the minute it got publicized that this was happening, like, what was the trajectory of that news in the community?
Minister, you want to take it?
I'll try to tackle both of these because they're kind of intertwined. So I guess the series of events for the CRD in January, this all kind of began with our congregation having a meeting where we voted on all the different campaigns that we wanted to take throughout the year. And this was the Ottawa County Invocation was one of the campaigns that we agreed on as a congregation. So when we did this, it wasn't just Cypher, it wasn't myself and Cypher, it was actually the whole community of people all consented to this and agreed that we, as the Satanic Temple West Michigan, want to perform this invocation. So we agreed to do that in January. He began the process of filing for it to get the...
Considering that I was the Ottawa County resident.
Yes.
Right.
So he got confirmed so quickly. Like, honestly, I had thought that we were not going to hear back and having a chance to do this invocation for months and months.
Right.
Like, I was honestly going to be impressed if we could do it before the end of the year. And it was like within, a week and a half we were confirmed.
Wow.
So that was like right around the beginning of March.
Yep.
So we began our initial planning, strategizing, kind of brainstorming how we were going to advertise this and make sure this information got out, because a big thing that I wanted to make sure of was that information about this, word that this invocation spread far and fast, because I wanted, if anything screwy happened with the administration of this, then at least there's a huge pool of people who saw an official announcement.
Yes.
Or what would be deemed as an official announcement for this.
Right.
So I went to Reddit with that, which is a good spot to share that kind of stuff. And the Satanic Temple is usually, people are pretty sympathetic to our causes on a lot of Reddit spaces. So I started pushing for this on Reddit, dropped the original post there as well as our personal Facebook page. We didn't want to share the date. We wanted to hold the date to ourselves and release that information over time rather than just put too much too fast. A big thing we had to plan around was the assembly of hate groups or militias or groups that might try to harm us. We didn't want to give them information that they could strategize around.
Right.
So we used a lot of caution in how we began leaking out information. We waited for a while to see kind of how it was being taken by people and went from there to strategize. We decided that we, as TST West Michigan, was going to kind of be a little bit radio silent about the invocation. We weren't going to be coming out and talking about it. Cypher was almost complete radio silence.
Oh yeah, I didn't say a single thing about the invocation or that it was me that did the request and was going to be doing the invocation. Like, people didn't know about me, honestly, till the very moment that I was called up to give that invocation. That was the very first time that people even realized that I was in the room, and because I looked so inconspicuous.
And that was by design. That was part of the initial strategy, is we wanted to make sure that he could move freely, that people wouldn't recognize him and such.
But they had seen you before, so
we did kind of like a kind of bait and switch, sort of. I don't know if it'd be a bait and switch, but basically I was presented to be sort of like the villain, kind of like the face that people were going to see, and people were making rumors about I being the person doing the invocation and such. So I was actually vocal about not doing it. I said many times that I am not the person delivering the invocation, but somehow rumors in these spaces were spread far and wide. But that wasn't my fault, and it's one of those things where, like, if people wanted to spread misinformation about it, that wasn't really my concern.
Yeah, they were going to do it no matter what. Yeah.
So we kind of just decided to let the news groups tell our story. So, like, all the local news around Ottawa County, Kent County, and such, we spoke to them. We gave them the information so they could release it. So we kind of had that level of control over how stuff went for information being released. And we did a lot of internal strategizing and security, like kind of recon work, social media recon work and stuff. We were going through just a lot of different forums and groups where people were discussing this invocation, trying to identify threats and people who might be problematic, and doing assessments on that. And that was just for weeks. It was just like comment section after comment section, and just
all hands on deck.
Yeah, just looking for people. That's interesting.
Of stupidity that I had to take in for that.
I'm so sorry.
Period.
I can't tell you how many times I was tempted to respond.
I bet.
And I had to hold my tongue.
Yeah. We were assessing threats as we went. We, figured out like building layout. We had strategies to get onto the property, to get off of the property.
Without getting into too much detail, because obviously security is a big thing when it comes to anything that we do in public. We did get, at the very least, Ottawa County law enforcement on board to run security. We let them know that there were possible threats. They were enough that we wanted to be precautionary. So, we did let them know that, like, hey, this was happening. Here's some of the things that has happened within TST nationally speaking, like more broadly speaking, some of the threats and situations that have occurred in other areas. And they were very responsive with the fact that, this is a significant threat. We need to have law enforcement there. So, we had made arrangements with local law enforcement, and, a lot of planning and detail went into the whole security aspect of it. We even had our own security people there that were like, I was not allowed to leave their side until they handed me off to Ottawa County.
Wow.
And Ottawa County had to then hand me back off to our security people.
Wow. We had escorts.
We played it very seriously.
And you guys were able to fund that just internally through the church, or was it like national?
This is our volunteer people.
This is volunteer people. Oh, nice. Wow. Shout out to them.
Because we love it. And we feel driven to do this kind of work for our community.
Wow.
So this is just people who sincerely believe in this cause.
Yeah.
Almost like 99% of the time, TST is a religious nonprofit organization.
Sure.
So no one makes any money, and most of the people that are doing things, I am speaking for myself and kind of how I see it. Most of the people that actually do things for TST, more broadly speaking, actually don't get paid.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about, like a minister performing a wedding or something the next state over, or maybe some attorney fees, and things like that for legal things. But beyond that, like everyone is a volunteer. We do this because our mission is important.
It seems like a lot of crap to go through just to have a prayer at the beginning of your meeting. Like
when you have volunteers ready to take a bullet for you.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a prayer, though.
Right.
It was a message. It was a signal to not just Satanists, but to all people who don't conform to the current dominant religious structures. It's a message that says that these dominant groups are not going to be at the top forever. There's other people stepping in, and there's other people who are going to make this playing field level and equitable for everybody who needs it. So
from the very beginning,
a major display of activism.
Definitely.
That is, it was an invocation, and it was at its core, it was a way that we connect with the community, but then expanded with how people read it and how it represents plurality to people. It's a major type of activism to be able to use our freedom of speech.
From the very beginning, we had actually discussed about, two of the main purposes here were, one, let's remind our local legislators that they're not here just for the Christians. They're not here to advance Christian ideology and Christian philosophy. They swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that they are legislators for everyone within the county, not just the group of Christians that essentially got them elected. And so that was the first thing, is reminding them that this isn't just a Christian county. There is a religious plurality here in Ottawa County that, we have so many different people. I work predominantly with Buddhists. Who live in Ottawa County. And so there's just a lot of different faiths in that county. And so that was the first thing. And number two was, to promote religious plurality and to encourage not just other Satanists, but to encourage any religion who resides within Ottawa County to come up and, make themselves known, give an invocation, show the county that we are a place that accepts all.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think by busting that door open, by you guys being kind of the first non-Christian group to do it, I imagine because the Satanic Temple is so divisive in just the general public and their ideas of it, that now other religions probably do feel more comfortable in doing that application.
I keep pushing my Buddhist coworkers.
Definitely.
Temple to do an invocation.
Definitely.
Why not?
I'm I'll go talk to your leaders.
Yeah. Definitely.
I'll show them how.
Yeah. Well, one thing, the reason why I was saying that was one of the comments, the follow-up comments I saw that night was, why are we doing a prayer at the beginning of the meetings at all? We should be getting on with the business of actually doing the. I imagine that's probably what you would feel as well.
Good question.
Yeah.
I would like to know the answer to that as well.
Yeah.
If someone can.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely against invocations. I will say that if our legislative bodies are not able to be impartial to those, then we probably shouldn't have them. But the tradition of invocation is one that has gone far, that dates far back before the inception of the country. So, I'm always weary about what traditions we're going to, what traditions no longer serve us and which ones, we should keep. I'm on the fence about invocations in general, but I will say that if there is one religious group doing them, then anybody should be able to do them, including us.
Yeah.
I agree. But also, I kind of have to consider with what I've seen going on with invocations in Ottawa County is that invocations are kind of problematic in the sense of that when one person does, or one group or individual does an invocation publicly, for example, let's look at Christianity. If, say, a pastor from one branch of a church goes up and gives an invocation and another denomination dislikes that, let's say a Catholic goes up and does a prayer to a saint and a Protestant dislikes that, well, that brings up people like petitioners who are going to be against this. That brings up other people who need to pray in retaliation.
Right.
And what we end up having is this prayer warfare happening. Like that was something that happened with our invocations.
Yeah.
With Satanic Temple, West Michigan delivered an invocation, and then every other petitioner wanted to go up there and give some kind of reparatory prayer.
Yeah.
That it turned from 3 minutes that people could have plugged their ears for into 2 hours of people like thinking that some kind of tangible wrongness happened, that there is some kind of imbalance in the world that they need to fix.
Like they need to scrub it clean.
Yeah.
Right.
Or something.
And it's
Over
really
half
just
of the 45 petitioners that night were in response to
Wow.
what a waste of time.
Exactly. There's no point for it. And like, I want to just be happy with saying like, yeah, invocations are fine, but also it seems like invocation, the presence of it seems to detract from the duty of serving the county. So
Definitely.
it's sort of a double-edged sword, is we have to deal with people don't seem to like hearing opinions or religious philosophies that they disagree with, and people are willing to waste a lot of time to make sure that their specific viewpoint is heard.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated issue because I do very much agree with everything that Minister Bones says, to the extent that limits free speech and the free expression of religion. Like it just ends up being a big mess that it's like maybe it is better if we don't do invocations, but at the same time it's like how far do we want to quell the American people from their right to essentially say what they want? I mean, if it's everyone gets 3 minutes. I had 3 minutes to do the invocation.
Yeah.
People have 3 minutes to petition. If you really wanted to, you could go do your own 3-minute invocation as your petition.
Right. Yeah.
It still doesn't stop people from saying what they want to say.
Right. And we can all agree that everybody should be allowed to do it if you're going to open it up. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. When are you doing it again? Are you going to be doing another invocation?
We have no plans as of now.
Okay.
To do another invocation program, but we're always looking for opportunities. Anywhere where we can get active in our communities, we would like to do so. It takes people from those communities who are willing to put in that kind of work and are willing to really do that sort of thing. Like, we have Reverend Cypher and myself here who are like willing to spearhead and do a lot of big projects and use all the resources at our fingertips to do so. But it really takes people from the community to engage into the community. So like with TST, we can't necessarily just go in somewhere where we don't reside and start performing things. Like if you looked into us, you probably heard about the After School Satan program.
Yes, I love those.
It's an awesome program, but it needs to actually be initiated by families from within a school.
Right.
So, Cypher and I couldn't just go around looking for schools.
Knocking on school doors.
And just...
Can we start an after-school thing with your kids?
One of the parents within our congregation could.
So my daughter's going to a school. They're hosting a good news club. And we have a number of interested kids and parents consenting to this. And we'd like to look into initiating an after-school Satan club. And that's something we can do. So really it takes people. And we hope to have the people who are in those areas where they need that kind of thing.
I actually, because this kind of plays into it, and I wasn't going to ask you guys until the end, but I actually hopped on our Reddit board and asked our listeners if they had any questions for you guys. And one of we don't have a ton of people on there. So they were interested in the Satanic Temple creating third places for people. So not work, not home, but like in a lot of people's lives, it is church. But the Satanic Temple doesn't really have a ton of like solid third spaces for people to go and create community. And she was saying, I think it's a she, he, they were saying as an atheist, they don't have a way to community build because there's not a place for atheists to kind of just settle and be with each other. And is that something you guys look to do within the community? And like, how do people get involved in what you guys are doing? And how can they find you guys?
One of my personal goals in life is ultimately to be able to buy a church and convert it into a community center and be able to run different resources and satanic ministry and just help people in need through a community center. And I would
good news. There's a lot up for sale.
They're hitting the market, so I believe it's an achievable dream, and I'm hoping in the next few years to do that. But yes, I know that's a common thing for people in Satanic Temple congregations nationwide, is that when we say temple, we are referring to the community, to the group of people. The church is the people,
not a building.
Not the building. And we are true to that. But we would really, really love to have a physical place where we can
centralized
practice
location.
and do a thing. And that's going to have all its own security risks in
of course,
itself.
Yeah.
But yes, creating third spaces for people and having that kind of option is something that we really desire to achieve within a reasonable time span.
Yeah.
But it's just we're grassroots, you know. Like we fund this ourselves. We fund this through the work that we do and through the blood of our fingers, you know. So if we had the money, we could, and we'll get there.
It's probably cheaper to buy a church right now than a house in West Michigan.
I mean, you did ask a little bit about, you know, like how someone would actually like join or be a part of something like that. Obviously, we don't have a physical location right now. We're just a congregation of people, democratic. I want to throw in their congregation. Like everything that the Satanic Temple West Michigan does is voted on by the congregation. We don't. As the co-heads of the Satanic Temple West Michigan, we make no unilateral decisions, no authoritative decisions. Like everything is run by our congregation. They are the ones that set the pace and decide the direction. That being said, right now, the main way people can find us are really going to be through, Facebook and Discord and things like that. We do have to keep security into consideration without trying to dive too far into people's, personal lives. But we do have an obligation to keep our members and our congregation safe from all harm. So the vetting is.
Would you guys look up on us before you came to our house? No, I'm interested. You guys came to our house. I'm like, we're strangers.
I listened to a couple of your podcasts to get a feel for you guys. Like I could already tell, from going all the way back, that you guys are just, down to earth people. So I felt pretty comfortable. But we do have to do a lot of vetting in order to do that. So it's not just one of those things that's like, hey, you come and ask us how to be involved. We're just going to open the doors for you. It's not anything about being like secretive or anything like that. It's about safety. There are a lot of people out there that believe that they would, that they're doing God's work by threatening and trying to eliminate us in the name of their loving Christ. We need to protect ourselves.
Sure.
Right. I was thinking of that. This was a shower thought today, actually, about I was thinking about like the insanity of having to protect yourself from a Christian.
Yeah.
Like just as somebody who was raised in Christianity and everything, like you were too. I don't know about you. Were you raised in Christianity? Okay.
Oh, yes, I was.
Okay, so
I don't think people come to like atheism or the Satanic Temple out of like not having been faced with that as a youth.
yeah.
A few do,
Yeah.
just because they stand behind the message. But I would argue that a good majority of congregant members, not just within West Michigan, but in general,
Right.
have had Christian religious background.
About 2/3, and we find that a lot of the people who are most involved and most dedicated to our work are people who came from very involved within their previous religion.
Yeah.
So
That's one thing I can totally understand why people would come to you guys and it would come to the Church of Scientology. Jesus
Whoa!
Christ. I guess I was saying that. I don't know.
The Satanic Temple. Please don't hold this against
Yeah.
him.
Okay.
He's just
I'm
so,
so sorry.
nervous.
Yeah. We don't have guests very often.
In all fairness, TST is not the only satanic denomination.
Right. Yeah.
Denomination
Yeah.
out there, so no worries.
No, it's just kind of the coolest one, though.
Yeah.
In my
I mean,
personal
I
opinion.
think so.
And
Yeah.
really, the thing that, like, I actually dated an Anton LaVey guy in college. And that was the only one I was even aware of for a long time. But I'm pretty sure that was before the Satanic Temple was
Yeah.
even founded, because I'm old. But, but the thing that kind of drives me towards interest in the work of the Satanic Temple is the work behind abortion rights and all of the things being done in that realm. And I, as a woman, cannot tell you enough that I really appreciate that work.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing, and what everybody's doing in the community around that sort of stuff. So, like, thank you. But I do definitely appreciate the work, and I think I donated to the Samuel
Alito's mom's
abortion clinic. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah. So, I'm interested in, like, I came to atheism being non-religious kind of from the start, just because my brain is weird and I never saw the reason to do it when I was little. But we started this podcast because kind of my interest in what he went through when he was young, and also the Bible being really fucked up. So I'm interested in what drew you to where you're at now. And you don't have to get super personal or anything, but
No, it's a fun story.
Okay.
I enjoy talking about where I came from.
Cool.
So I was born and baptized Lutheran, raised Lutheran pretty much my whole life up to like young adulthood. It was strange though, because I also was non-denominational at the same time. Like, I was going to the Lutheran church young, and then throughout the summer, when my family was spending time with my grandmother, she was still Lutheran, and we'd go to Lutheran churches. But by that time, my parents and my brothers had started going to non-denominational churches. So like in the summer, I would attend Lutheran churches. We were still going to Lutheran youth camps and youth groups. I took guitar lessons and piano lessons at a Lutheran church, karate lessons at a Lutheran church, went to a Lutheran school. So I was Lutheran, but then as like a teenager, so I was baptized non-denominationally as I was attending the Lutheran school. And some of the overlap there got kind of weird because things were happening in one church that another church was saying, like, no, like, this isn't actually a thing. And it started through that kind of picking at the seams. Like, the biggest thing for me, the biggest wake-up call I experience was actually the day I was baptized by the evangelical church. It's a local church in the Grand Rapids area. They have really nice pool tables. But so like I attended that church. We did the baptism. I was 13 or so, and after the baptism, they brought all the people baptized into a back room. It was a ton of people. They had a whole baptismal assembly line going on. You know, they were dunking us and sending us on.
was it in a hot tub?
I don't
Was this
remember.
the church you went to?
I told her though that like a lot of churches have hot tubs just for that.
Blows my mind.
Nice. Yeah, I don't remember the temperature,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But what I do remember is they brought all us baptistes back there, and they began doing the Pentecost prayer in tongues, glossolalia, and they started. The pastor went person to person, kind of initiating it to people.
Yeah,
and it was happening to all these people. I was seeing it, and I had heard that prayer in tongues was a thing that happened, but it was a story. It was not a thing that I was aware was actively practiced yet. I had not been briefed or prepped of any of this. I thought I was just getting some water dunked on my head to make my parents happy.
Right.
And now, like, they want me to, like, do something.
Yeah. So were you a believer then, or it sounds? You did believe it.
My hair was still wet from my baptism at that point. Like, I really did consider myself to be like a devout Christian and had intended to live my life as a Christian man.
Okay. Yeah.
But my hair's still wet, and they came to me like, your turn, and I opened my mouth to pray, and nothing came out, and it was just weird. Like, the whole illusion kind of fell apart. It was just like a moment, and I remember just sitting there thinking, like, something is wrong here.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't right, and that feeling just sat with me forever. But then down the road a little bit, I was going to Lutheran school, and I told the pastor there about that they were doing this. Well, Lutherans have some funny thoughts about the Pentecost connection, so that wasn't working out right. And so seeing that these churches couldn't agree and having to conflict with that idea that, like, I'm being told by two different groups that something is true, but these two groups are telling me that each other is wrong. It's like that scene from Labyrinth. And, like, either way, you're probably going to end up in hell. I don't know. And I was kind of a metalhead. I was, like, into, like, the metalhead culture and stuff like that. So, like, sitting in religious school with a Bible in front of me, I'm going to read Revelations. Book of Revelations. That's metal as
the most metal part of the Bible.
And so I was reading it, like, just being ADHD in class. And the teacher, who, was a minister, came up and, noticed that I was reading Revelations. And he said, like, hey, I noticed you're reading Revelations. That's a very complicated book. And if you would like, I would sit down and, like, tell you about it and tell you how to determine this book. And I thought, cool, that's a really nice thing to have a pastor be like, I'm going to explain to you exactly what this text means. Yeah. I was excited about that. I went home, told my family that I wanted to do that. Yeah. My family told me no, because we don't believe in the end times the same way Lutherans do. Yeah. And imagine being 15 and, like, trying to wrap your head around that.
Right.
Like, the teacher at the school that you pay to send me to is going to teach me something, but I'm told that we don't believe in what he's going to teach me. Like, how do you believe anything at that point?
Right.
Like,
from the same book.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that really, deconstruction took years after that. And I think deconstruction is kind of a lifelong thing. When you're born into religion, deconstruction is a lifelong journey. But, the bulk of it did take a few years after that. I tried to get into, like, Wicca and paganism. I wanted to be
all the metal stuff,
like Norse, Satruar, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I even, like, started looking into Crowley and but it took a long time to end up where I was. But I think that was kind of the big thing, was having the teachings of two different churches put on me as a adolescent and realizing that these beliefs were incompatible with themselves. Yeah. But I've been hogging up all the oxygen. What you got, Reverend Cypher?
So I did grow up in a Pentecostal church. I mentioned to you guys earlier that I kind of see Pentecostalism as evangelicalism on steroids. I did grow up very devout. The whole thing that, like, angels and demons and heaven and hell and God and Satan, like, all of that was very, very real to me. When I got into my teens, I became the youth group leader in my church. I preached. I was kind of on the fast track toward becoming an evangelist. Like, these were things that people were, prophesizing about me, like, oh, he's going to be bringing the word of God to everyone, and to the this was like a big thing, and
who knows? Maybe you are.
Right? And this was essentially through the most formative time of my life. I know I don't look it, but I'm fast approaching my 40s. So this was actually during the time of the Satanic Panic era.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm 42, so I solidly remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So like this was a time when it was like, this was like very scary, real stuff, especially because like people were going to jail over this stuff. And like it just, when you're 9-10 years old, like, and you see that, like, that only reaffirms that, like, yes, everything that they're telling me from the pulpit is real.
Right.
So yeah, I had a very it was just a very hardcore Christian upbringing. When I graduated high school, I went to college at our local university at Grand Valley State University. And once I was kind of away from the church and being exposed to a more diverse span of religious, philosophies, that's, I think, when I started to deconstruct. It didn't happen overnight. It happened about kind of took well over a decade. And that being said, what Minister Bones said is true. Like, deconstruction is a lifelong thing. I still deal with a lot of the things that were indoctrinated in me as a child. And I have to use my reason to remind myself that, like, no, like, this isn't what I was told isn't the way things actually are. Right. And so I started to deconstruct. I had always been interested in religions. So one thing that Grand Valley did, at least when I went to college, was almost 20 years ago already. Geez. One thing that I did, or one thing that they do is when you select a major, you have a theme year, which are like your final 2 years where you kind of elect either a semester or a year of courses that are kind of different from your area of study. It's supposed to make you a more well-rounded student. So because I was studying, biology, and I was in the sciences, and I'd always been interested in religion, grew up steeped in religion, I figured I'd do my theme in religion. At that time, I started getting exposed to a whole bunch of, learning about a whole bunch of different religious philosophies from around the world. It was very interesting. By this time, of course, I had already considered myself an atheist and kind of dropped the whole idea that there was this supreme God sitting up on a throne and in heaven kind of judging everyone and all that. So I was able to learn those things without feeling like any kind of like guilt about it. Because growing up in the church, I was made to feel guilty whenever whenever we learned anything that strayed from what was taught within the church. I remember one time I went to a friend's church and I got a hard time from our pastor about it. Like, it kind of like what Minister Bones here was saying, that different denominations don't really get along too well.
They're so scared. They're so scared of you getting like different ideas, even from a different kind of church. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, once I was away from all that, I was able to kind of learn more, and none of the religions I was learning actually kind of called out to me like, oh, this is something where like you can put your faith in or stand behind. It was just kind of one of those things that's like, this is interesting to me, so I want to know a little more about it. Not with any intentions to join up any religion. After college, I worked for a while. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the documentary Hail Satan.
I might have watched this one.
Might have watched it? Okay. So this was a documentary that came out just a few years after 2019. Okay. So about 5 years after the inception, 6 years after the inception of the Satanic Temple movement.
Yeah. I do remember this one.
Yep.
I think it was on Hulu, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
This was a good documentary.
So that was early times of TST. Like we've gone through like 2 restructuring since then.
Oh, really?
Like
wow.
that.
Since 2019?
It's been evolving. Yeah. Well, the TST first unveiled itself in 2013.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember
2013.
a while back. But
so before that documentary actually came out, obviously TST had been doing their thing for about 6 years. And because I've always been interested in religion, I frequently get, Facebook posts about like religious things and whatnot and just things like that. I've always kind of kept tabs on that. And the very first time I actually heard about the Satanic Temple was from reading an article that was shared with me about how the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple were more wholesome than the 10 Commandments of the Christian Bible. So I'm starting to read this article, and I'm reading over the 7 tenets for the first time, and I'm realizing like, wow, these are
me.
Essentially, the 7 tenets reflected the personal core values that I had developed into my adulthood. Once I was well into my adulthood, I had a set of personal core values, and these tenets like reflected them so closely that it was almost like it wasn't like I became a Satanist at that time. It was this realization that I've always been a Satanist and never had the words or the language to like express that. It just felt like this was who I was.
Sure.
And now, the 7 fundamental tenets of the Satanic Temple. Number 1 should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. Number 2, the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. Number 3, one's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. Number 4, the freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own. Number 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs. Number 6, people are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. And number 7, every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word.
So, and that was before I even saw the documentary. Most people join us after seeing the documentary.
Yeah.
This was well before then. And so about 2019, when the documentary came out, that's when I found the Satanic Temple West Michigan through, if you go on to the satanictemple.com website, you can find a congregation through there. Realized there was one right here in West Michigan. I went to their first like in-person meeting. This was right before COVID disrupted all across the globe.
Sure.
I think you and I went to our first meeting. We
It was about the same
in-person
time.
meeting.
Really?
Yeah, at the same time.
It was about the same
Wow.
time.
And now you guys are heading.
Something like that. Yeah, I think I came along like in March.
So
yeah.
basically, we joined nearly the same time, just coincidentally.
Yeah.
We've just
And-
been along for this ride together.
And it was so great because I literally I went to one of these meetings and one of the congregation members who were already vetted at that time, like they were so open, like so accepting and compassionate, and like everyone there was just so wholesome and like just like happy that you were there, like celebrating who you are. And I'm just like thinking like this feels really good.
Yeah.
It feels really good to be a part of a community that shares a lot of the same values and viewpoints as you do. So COVID hit. Our meetings went online. Pretty much everything went online. I kind of stuck with it. It was about when COVID when people were starting to like come back out again, that I had actually gotten inducted into the Satanic Temple, West Michigan. All I had to do was, drink some blood and sacrifice a baby.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I got my promotion too. Like, it's a West Michigan thing.
Right. It was a very simple ceremony, just affirming, my choice and my essentially affirming my decision to live life, the way I feel it's appropriate. And then, like Minister Bone says, from there, everything just kind of took off. I started, just organizing some things and kind of dabbling here and there. Sooner or later, I became a co-head.
Yeah. I want to just point out, though, like, multiple times throughout your story, I keep thinking like, well, this is something a Christian could say about their church too.
Right.
Like they should be able to understand this feeling, finding a community and stuff like that. Like that's what I think is probably the biggest pull for churches at this point is community. How do you not understand that? Like when somebody else feels that too. So yeah,
and I think
because they use the word Satan.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things though, is that like I've come from this background of Satan. It was this bad thing. Mm-hmm. But as an atheist, I was coming to it from like, okay, like here's a different interpretation of Satan that I'd never heard before. That's actually been around for quite some time. And when you portray him as kind of like the hero, the one man that stood up to all the arbitrary authority, all the arbitrary power in the world and said that you may be all powerful, but you are not all righteous. You are not all good. And in fact, anybody could do this job. I could do the job better than you can.
Right.
You selfish, prideful, angered, hypocritical tyrant.
Yeah.
It was this whole thing of like, okay, this was a being that in the literary, not the literal, the literary readings shows him to be, like the guy that sticks it to the man.
Yeah.
And that's really, and I identified with that. So it wasn't that like, oh man, I all of a sudden like was granted some kind of power. I was seeing weird stuff happening or anything. It was like, no, it was this understanding that I identify with that definition of the archetype of the universal opposer and the eternal rebel against any and all arbitrary authority.
Yeah.
Being in West Michigan and it being West Michigan, how, like at work, do you talk about being Satanist? Like how comfortable do you feel talking about this in the general? As an atheist, I work for a giant corporation in West Michigan. And, it took me a really long time to feel okay even with just saying that I was an atheist at work because there's so many people, and not that the organization I work for like pushes any agenda like that, but like a lot of the people I work with are very religious. So like even me just saying like I don't believe in any of that bullshit to them at work was a little scary for me at first. So
You might have seen some of them at the Invocation.
maybe.
We're going to get two different perspectives.
Okay, all right.
I work for a large company. Bendr, on the other hand, does not. So why don't you lead?
So I'm in a situation right now where like I'm not working under any kind of employment. I recently got certified as a personal trainer. So
cool.
I'm working on getting into the fitness industry and taking on clients through that.
Self-employed.
And I'm trying to kind of like market who I am as a person as sort of a marketing trait. You know, there a lot of people appreciate my presence and appreciate my input on things. So I think for a marketability standpoint, I can kind of sell my individuality to people from like a personal trainer perspective. So I'm hoping to get into that. But I have come from different working environments where I've had to protect this information or be open with it. I did work at a major international retailer for a while, and that's when I was getting really into Satanism aesthetically. And I also kind of was in a weird spot where I had a particular job where I was wearing regular street clothes to work.
Okay.
And my street apparel on the clock started becoming more and more blatant. Not just gothy, becoming more and more satanic.
I like how you said that while you're like playing with your upside down cross on your.
I actually did get pulled into the office once, and the like manager did have to say like, "Hey, religious symbols, like it's not what the religious symbol is. I need to put a full stop to religious symbols."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like,
I see somebody wearing a crucifix though.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So like, you know, I myself as an individual cannot shut this off. This doesn't have to turn off anymore. Yeah. So I have to learn how to adapt and embrace that, and maybe learn how to make it into something that I can make some.
There's a market there for sure.
Stability off of. Yes.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I can definitely turn it off. You take the shirt off me and I look like someone's dad.
Yeah.
You know, I got a huge kayaking tattoo on my arm.
There you go.
I'm an avid kayaker.
He could have wandered around at the Fillmore complex during the Invocation. He could have wandered around and nobody would have even known it was him.
Right.
No one did know it was me. Like I got my jacket on and everything.
Somebody hands you like a Christian sign to hold
I
up.
definitely, I have like 2 gauges in my ear, but other than that, like, which anyone
That's
would
just
do.
because you're old.
Exactly. But outside of that, like, really, you can't really tell that unless I'm wearing something blatantly satanic, you can't really tell that I'm a Satanist, which is normally how I look most of the time, is I wear just regular everyday clothes. Typically, I dress the part when we're doing something, you know, with the congregation or within the congregation. But otherwise, like, I wear very outdoorsy clothes because I'm an outdoorsy guy. Yeah. You know, and so, like, I do work for a large corporation in West Michigan. So almost everyone I work with knows I'm a Satanist. Although, to be fair, most of the people I work with are Buddhists, so they don't care.
Right.
Like, they really don't. They really don't.
No, if anybody's not going to care, it's
right? Yeah,
they're right.
Yeah. Although we do have a lot of I mean, it's a big corporation, so we do have several Christian people that I work with as well. Some of them are cool with it. Others, let's just say that others are weary about me.
But tolerate.
To say the least. Yeah. Well, they kind of have to.
They have to.
Right.
Yeah, because our corporation is not going to tolerate any kind of discrimination of that sort.
Yeah.
Especially when they employ so many people from the surrounding area. Like, they need people who are going to be able to work shoulder to shoulder without any kind of bickering, because it is a very assembly line type work, and just the whole, like, if there's going to be religious infighting or stuff like that, like, they're going to put a stop to it.
Right.
Beyond that, they really don't. They really don't care about how you express yourself, just as long as it's not causing a disruption to production. But that being said, like, most of the people that I work with do know I'm a Satanist. I think that a lot of people up until the Invocation didn't know
How involved you were?
I actually was until recently. So it kind of, even though most people knew, like a lot of people were saying, they were like, well, I heard that the Satanic Temple was doing this, and I was gonna ask you about it, but I didn't know you were the guy, like the guy. I'm like, that
Surprise.
was me. It was Louis Cypher.
Oh, right,
They all know
right.
me by my legal
Your
name.
government
Wait a second.
name.
Are you saying Louis Cypher is not actually your name?
Don't tell Commissioner Bonema.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a security thing.
Oh, that was another thing. I saw another video. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I happened to notice another video. There's a commissioner who's right before you gave your invocation. They were like, we don't even know who this guy's real name is.
Yeah. In all fairness, like, what I do is what I do. My family doesn't need to deal with death threats because someone finds out who my name is.
Again, super fucked up that you even have to worry about that.
know, right?
From Christians.
Super fucked up. Just to say it.
I carry the pseudonym, like, not really for myself, but for my family.
Yeah.
You know, because my family are still active practicing Christians, and that's okay.
Yep.
And they don't necessarily understand or see my work. So, you know, I don't believe they need to be pulled into my type of work. If I'm going to be active and a person who is representing this group publicly, you know, I don't need my family to be brought into that. So I
like
carry the pseudonym
superheroes.
to protect them. So if people are looking to dox me, who they're actually threatening the most are other people who are probably a lot like them.
Yeah.
And are probably distressed about what I'm doing too.
And that was kind of a big concern with me at work because, again, I work in I work in Ottawa County. People know me, especially working in a big company like I do. And then, you know, seeing this on TV, like, one of my big things was that, okay, like, my identity is going to get out there.
Right.
Fortunately, even the diehard Christians at work, like, here's the thing. I am genuinely a nice guy. I'm one of those people that, like, I can't watch anything suffer. I genuinely care about the well-being of other people, whether or not we agree with each other, whether or not we're, you know, we come from the same political, religious ideology or not. It doesn't matter to me. I genuinely care about people's well-being. And I think that is so evident around work that people that, if you didn't know that I was a Satanist, you'd never guess that. If you think, if you in your mind, you think that Satanists are just these, you know, spooky people dressed in black, like, ready to, like, following you around,
doing children's sacrifices,
stuff like that. And it's like, no, like, that's not who I am. Like, if you need help planting your garden, like, give me a call. If you want to go out kayaking, give me a shout.
Right.
Like, that's who I am.
Yeah.
And so I think
you want to fight religious oppression.
I think a lot of people, it does force some of the most diehard, ardent Christians, especially the ones that I work with, it does force them to reconcile the fact that what you're hearing from the pulpit is not what you're experiencing in real life. I'm not really sorry about that. I think it might actually be good for you.
Definitely.
But that being said, like they have this idea of what Satanism is. Like, they actually know, and then they meet me, and it's like, people say, like, you don't act like a Satanist. Well, it's like, how many Satanists do you know?
Right.
You obviously know a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
If you're telling me what a Satanist is.
Yeah.
You know?
One of my favorites.
I'm sorry.
Happened more than once is, like, when I tell people about who I am and what I do, and people go like, "Oh, what does Satanists do?" And I'll show them our 7 tenets, and they'll read through it, and they'll go, "Well, that's not what Satanists really believe."
Yeah.
What do you mean it's not? I am the person telling you the...
Right. Who have you been talking
It's
to?
the same people who say like, "Oh, that's not a real Christian." You know, like when a Christian doesn't do what they want. You know,
I need to have like the name like Dark Lord in front of my
maybe.
actually have gravity.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah.
What I believe.
I think most people were just comfortable enough around me that the people who do know me by my real identity know what I'm about. They know who I am. They know why I do the things that I do. And so far, I haven't had any of them actually like going out of their way to like dox me or give me shit or anything.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is that that renewed some people's mission to try and convert me. Which is real funny because there's this one guy, he keeps telling me, we need to talk after this. Like, a real Christian.
No thanks.
And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, there are no shortage of Christians that want to debate me. And I'm sorry, but you may think that you might have something new that'll convince me otherwise, or some new way of saying something that'll convince me of what you're saying. But I can tell you right now, your argument is the same.
Unless you can call down God.
It's not going to convince me.
I mean, that's how I became an atheist. I was set out to disprove atheism. You're right, and it's like, oh, actually, there's good reasons.
And it's like, and on top of that, like, I've been there, I've done that. You're not telling me anything new.
The big problem, especially with people who think that they could convert a Satanist into Christianity, is that one of the fundamentals of conversion into Christianity is that you need to declare that you are born inherently flawed. You need to be repaired. You cannot tell a Satanist that they are flawed. No, we are perfect. We are exactly what we are supposed to be.
Right.
And if you try to tell me that I am anything less than that, you are my adversary.
I'm God unto myself.
So it's
amazing.
The argument doesn't work at the gate. I reject the premise. So the conclusion means nothing. So,
they seem to ignore the fact that if God did exist the way that they thought, they made you exactly the way that you are. So, so your problem is with God then, I guess. Thank you guys so much for coming down and doing this. This has been a really great discussion. I think we're probably at a good...
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else you guys want to make sure that our listeners hear? Or I feel like we got through a lot of stuff.
Want to give a plug?
But...
Is your audience more local or national?
I mean, we have people in China who listen to us.
Yeah,
worldwide.
I don't need to do a local plug, but
but they might want to donate. They can donate from anywhere, right?
Well, I would say this. If you're obviously we represent the Satanic Temple, West Michigan. We do have our own constitution and our own way of doing things ourselves, but we are part of a much broader religious movement, which if people were interested in knowing more about, if they want to know more about like the official position of the Satanic Temple in general, you can go to the Satanic Temple. Is it .com or .org?
.org.
.org. I always confuse those two. It's the satanictemple.org. You can go to their About page, read up about us. If you're interested in finding a congregation in your local area, that would be the place to do it, and that's anywhere in the U.S. So definitely, if you're curious, that information is out there for you to read. And if you want to know more, or if you're local to West Michigan, search us out, and we would be happy to meet you and get you on the path toward onboarding if that's really your wish. No one's being forced. No one's hands are getting twisted. You do not have to sign your name in Satan's book of whatever nonsense they.
You don't have to.
That's not a thing.
You don't have to drink the blood.
You guys don't have a Necronomicon?
You don't have to kidnap a child.
No.
None of that. Just be who you are. And when you find us, we'd be happy to kind of just fill you in on ongoing projects and things that we got going on. We have a lot of stuff planned this year, so
that's awesome.
You guys will be at Pride this year again. Yep.
Always representing.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Do you do all the local prides, or I know the big one in Grand Rapids? You're there,
Grand Rapids is our baby.
Okay.
We are branching out to a few other locations this year, but it's it's one of the biggest, most frustrating projects we do. It's incredible. We love Pride. It is one of the most fulfilling and incredible events that we as TST West Michigan do throughout the year, and we're so excited for it.
Yeah.
But God damn, it is hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard project to pull off. But the reward is so beyond worth it.
I feel like that's always where I end up seeing you guys. Like that's like the most visible place for it. Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen the destruction rituals there.
Yeah.
If you want to do a destruction ritual and you have stuff to get off your chest, West Michigan, come and find us at the Grand Rapids Pride.
I can't wait. I will totally do this time.
I guess I just want to say, if you want to support TST, and if you want to support even more broadly than TST, but all these kind of causes and all these kind of groups that are fighting for plurality and freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all these kind of pursuits that we think are important, the most important thing we can do to support us and take care of us all is make sure that we are registered to vote, and make sure all our friends are registered to vote, and our families, make sure we are informed and learning about what's happening, and make sure that we are getting out there and hitting the ballot boxes in November, because what 2025 could hold for us could be a very different United States than what we're seeing right now, and it's dire.
It wouldn't just poorly impact the Satanic Temple, West Michigan.
Everybody.
No, as a woman, I feel especially threatened.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage all your United States audience to do that, to register to vote, make sure your friends and family are registered, and get out there and do it.
Absolutely.
So that's how you can support us.
Amen.
We'll be active.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much. And we will have all of the links you said in the show notes. So you can click in there to find those. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this is great. This is so much fun. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. Help us grow the audience by sharing us with your friends or giving us a share on social media. And we love hearing from you. You can reach out on our website at bsfa.cc.
Hail Satan!